Hey everyone, thanks for joining us here at Book Blather. If you're new here, I'm Dave. This is Olive, and we try to have a little fun while we talk about books. And what you got something to say? You want to say? You want you? Well, you got to say it if you got something you're going to say. Huh? All right. Well, so we talk about books and other things, and we try to have a little fun along the way. So today, what we're talking about is we just want to talk about our 2023 failures. And by this, we mean two things. One, books we read that we neglected to talk about, and books that we tried to read and actually couldn't complete the task. So, so first, there was just a couple books that we read that we forgot to, or we just put them off, and then we were going to talk about them with something else, and that never happened, and we never discussed these books. So the first one was a graphic novel, and we actually, is this the only graphic novel we read this year? It might be. So we like comics, graphic novels, but we've been reading less of them lately, just too many books to read that suck up all the time. So this is Middle West. This is by Scotty Young and Jorge Corona. And this is, my daughter had got me this book like last Christmas. And my daughter, that's a very avid reader, and she got this for me because we both read and really enjoyed a graphic novel called, I mean, it was a comic, but they put them in trade paperbacks, called I Hate Fairyland, that Scotty Young did. And that was awesome. That series is one of those that it just like really just made you laugh. So like not very appropriate, it was a little it was about is about that series about like a little girl that ends up, like little girls like wish to go to fairyland, I think it was, and they end up there, and when they complete the little quest that they're supposed to do, then they leave, and they're the princess while they're there. But this is about like a troublemaker girl, and she is awful. She's awful, and she's nasty, really bad attitude, and she like cannot figure out like how to get through this thing. So she's there like for forever, and she's got this funny sidekick. Anyway, all that has nothing to do with this book, but you should read I Hate Fairyland if you like graphic novels at all. But so this one is by Scotty Young, so that's why she got it for me, because we both loved that series so much. And this book, I can't even tell you, this was not very good. I can't even tell you all that much what this was about, because that's how little of an impression it left on me. And I read it like in the beginning of 2023. So this was like, so this boy, and like, his dad's like kind of abusive, and then there's like he's like followed by this wind, like supernatural wind or something. That's all I remember about it. It was pretty bad actually. Then read, well, I don't remember which one was first. So maybe this one. So I read another Robert Silverberg book, Collision Course. So this is one of those old shorts, the way science fiction novels were back then. So Silverberg we've read a number of those now, right, Olive? And they've been kind of hit or miss for us. This one was, I mean, it was all right. I mean, there was nothing bad about it, but so these were a while ago, and I think there's a couple issues. Like, Robert Silverberg, like he used to just like pump these things out. Like he wrote so many of these, they're short science fiction novels. He wrote so many of these. Sometimes he would write them like in a few weeks, and so they were written quickly. They're short, and they have ideas in them. I think part of the issue is they have ideas in them that like they seemed like maybe like a big idea then, and they're like so not a big idea now, in terms of speculative science fiction. And so so that was kind of what the impression I got with this. So this is about these two, us and some other species that are colonizing the galaxy, I guess it was, and they're both like, but we're both expanding, and we're about to like encroach on each other's territory. So we go to meet them to talk about it, and things don't go so great, and then everybody finds out that like everything's kind of just a matter of perspective, right? And so I don't want to say anything any more than that in case you want to read it, but it has to do with basically with evolution, and everything's a matter of perspective. But it was pretty basic. I mean, it was a pretty basic, like the message that it was telling was like, you know, you're like, oh, okay, there really wasn't anything to it. Probably not worth your time reading. But if you have a different opinion, let us know. And then another one that we read is we're probably the last people that like science fiction to have gotten around to this. But this was All Systems Red by Martha Wells. So it's the first book in a series of novellas called the Murderbot Diaries. And basically, what that was about was I don't remember if I remember too well, but there are these like androids. They're basically androids, but they're very intelligent and somewhat self-aware, and they get hired for different jobs. And so this one gets hired for this the scientific team that's going to check out a planet, and it turns out that he is like a little more self-aware, and like he hacks his own governor module so that he can do his own thing, which is really just he just wants to watch endless like streaming TV, and so and not be bothered with anything else. And so, but turns out he ends up being like a little more human. Something happens and he ends up being a little more human, and the crew gets very attached to him, and there's a conspiracy, and so it was good, and it was pretty funny in parts, so it was definitely worth reading. We're eventually we weren't in a rush to do it, but we're eventually gonna read more in that series. That was fun. So, okay, now the other half of what we wanted to talk about was, and this is the perfect time to put this up because we are going to be discussing this topic on the live stream tomorrow. If you don't know, our first episode of our show that we're doing with Gareth over at Book Songs and Other Magic, our show Is This Thing On, which premieres tomorrow at 6 Eastern Time, 11 p.m. UK time. And so I won't say too much substantively about why this happens and how to deal with it and everything. But we have some books that are up. We just want to mention the books that were unfinished this year. And when I was thinking about, hey, we'll talk about our failures, and there was like, yeah, we didn't finish like both of those books, and oh no, wait, there was like a third book we didn't finish. So I'm like, yeah, so like 3 books we did. So then I went and looked. I went and checked the piles and everything. 8 books that we started in 2023 that we didn't finish, only one of which was an intentional DNF. So 8. So the intentional DNF was actually a buddy read with Gareth over at Book Songs and Other Magic. And when we were reading it during the buddy read, we both quit. This is The Female Man by Joanna Russ. And so we both DNF this book at that time, and I never intentionally DNF stuff. I say that like I have these other 7 books to talk to you about, but those are accidental. I'll get into that in a second. But I very rarely intentionally DNF a book because I feel invested, and even if I'm not liking it, I want to finish it. But this was an intentional DNF. This was horrible, which is crazy because this is a classic. It's a very well-respected book. A science fiction book dealing with feminism. But I think Gareth actually went back and gave it another try, and he did finish it. But we had both quit at the time because it was like purposely written in a very confusing manner. It was torture to try to get through this. And I only got like a quarter of the way through before it gave up because it was really torture to try to follow along with what was going on. It was like different time periods, and you never tell who was talking, and so that was our intentional DNF. Then throughout the course of the year, there was actually I think it was seven other books that we started, and we did not purposely not finish them. It just happened. Like we end up like starting different books, or one is relevant for a month and then the month ends and we're still planning to finish it, but then we get into like the next stuff for the next month, and then it kind of just accidentally gets left behind, and we have too many other things going on, and we never go back and finish it. So we are actually going to finish all of these books this year. But let me show you the ones that we didn't finish. So, first one is Paladin Unbound. This is the only one I wasn't sure about. I think this was January where we started this, and this is I was enjoying it. It's a fantasy novel. I actually had coffee with the author one day, Jeffrey Spate, and he's there. There's a second book in the series out now, and this is based on was teaching his kids about D&D and built this world, and then that's was the genesis for this novel. And so it just fell by the wayside. And so I'm going to get back to that because I definitely want to read that. February, The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin. This is a very famous science fiction novel. It's a classic. It's award winner, dealing with gender issues, and just I totally want to read it. Totally wanted to finish it. It just fell by the wayside. Also February, Notes from the Underground by Dostoevsky. I tried it, and I was actually having a little. I didn't DNF it on purpose again, but it was going slowly. I was having a little bit of trouble following it. That may have had something to do with this. Is a little more of a philosophical book, and I was on a lot of pain medication at the time after surgery. So that might have something to do with it. I don't know. But so I kind of like put it aside and read some other things that are like more enjoyable to keep moving along, and then it just got forgotten about. April, The Heaven Makers by Frank Herbert, author of Dune. This is a weird science fiction novel. This is about like way in the future, aliens, some advanced aliens like invade Earth, and like they kind of control things, and so the people on Earth are really they're totally just manipulated by these like godlike beings, and they're just and the people on Earth are kind of just playing out scenes for these godlike beings, and people come and visit Earth to to see these what I forget what they call them, but just to see these little things, these things being acted out, with which we view as real life, but it's totally being manipulated and happening again, and it's so anyway, I mean it was decent so far. So June or July, Why Evolution is True by Jerry Coyne. And this was actually when we picked this up again in 2023, it was as a reread, and that's very rare for us. We reread very few books, but we wanted to reread this one because this was in our head. We remembered this as being probably this very clearly walks through the many different types of evidence for evolution, and I recommended it to somebody. Had it in my head that I thought this was the best one that I remembered that does that. And but then I was like, it had been a while. It had been a decade. And so I was like, let me go back and reread that if I'm going to be recommending this book to see if if I'm remembering it right. So I got about halfway through and we didn't finish. But I guess I felt no compulsion because I'd already read that one before. August, Celestial Chess by Thomas Bondley. How far did I get in this? Maybe a third of the way through this. This was for Garb-August. This was the final week of Garb-August. I had saved this for the Anything Goes prompt, and we were supposed to read a book that Pax had read, and Pax had actually sent me this book. This was her book, and then I didn't. I started it and then got really busy at the end of August and just set it down. And before you know it, we were on new things. I was enjoying it though. October, The Mans by Lisa Cantrell. This is a paperback from hell that we were reading for our Halloween. In October, we always read stuff that is Halloween themed. We were particularly bold this October because the idea is we read a short Halloween book each week and then we supplement it with short stories. This year we got very bold and we were going to supplement with another full-length novel, like filling in those weeks. And so clearly we did not get it done. Again, very much enjoying it, but we only got a third of the way through. So still meant to finish it when October came around, but then other stuff happened, and you got buddy reads, other things you're supposed to read, and so So that's what happened. Those are all the books. Those are all the books that we didn't finish in 2023. Paladin Unbound. Now they're out of order. Paladin Unbound, The Left Hand of Darkness, Notes from Underground, The Heaven Makers, Why Evolution is True, The Celestial Chess, and the Female Man, which we purposely DNF. So those will all be books we'll be reading this year, except for The Female Man. So if you've read any of these, have any thoughts, any comments, let us know as always. If you don't want to leave anything substantive, you can always leave Olive a puppy emoji because she always likes to see those, right? You always like to see the puppy emojis, Olive? Yeah, so thanks so much for watching. We'll see you again very soon. We'll see you on the live stream tomorrow, hopefully. Tune in if you can. Thursday evening, 6 Eastern Time, 11 UK time. Hope to see you there, and we'll be talking more about unfinished books and no doubt some other things. And but in the meantime, take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll see you next time.